If you say we've entered into over 400 treaties,
correct,
that means we're in
about 400 treaties. Yes.
We're in breach of many.
Yes.
What's stopping these countries, these countries who entered into these treaties with from
they're benefiting from it? For example, outside to
and they're not taking out any legal action against
they are benefiting. We're the one receiving the short end of the stick. There's nothing stopping us from think about it. Why aren't we even reviewing? We just signed. There's the ICC, the International. There's the UN, United Nations Center for Trade and Development, which has constantly been saying that, listen, there is a need for the review of, it goes beyond even domesticating it. There's a need for the review of a new generation of treaties.
There are those who would say that the National Assembly is failing because it took this long for you to even begin to look at the treaties we have and begin to cry out that, look, we need to do something about it. So why did it take you so long?
Already, now that the committee is in place, we're having a hard time even getting a proper list. It goes beyond just the National Assembly. This is the practice everywhere in the world. If you take Greece, for example, when Greece was going to take up the IMF loan, you remember the executive arm of government had agreed, but the people marched to the assembly to say, you dare not take up these treaties because, this IMF loan, because they had a good and prior understanding of this. As you are, you should be able to go on your website to say, I want to go invest in Bolivia. Do we have some investment treaty with Bolivia or a treaty of reciprocal business promotion? That's another arm that we need to look at. And then you look at what it stipulates. Before even doing that, there should be a town hall meeting or a congregation of stakeholders to say, these are the things you should negotiate for us. This is what we face. That isn't the case. And the National Assembly has always been shouting. Now, we're not trying to be perfect, but we're trying to be excellent, like somebody said. And mistakes will be made. Some mistakes were made, and the process of correcting these mistakes is why this committee has come on board.
Do you think your committee has done well? Because we have to start looking at how we can rate some of these committees in the House and the National Assembly, so to speak.
Correct.
Because we have seen a lot of Nigerians complain on how they've been treated outside, especially those that have gone out to do business, genuine and legitimate business, thinking that, they have some international agreement in form of treaties with the other country. But back home, we have always seen how we have treated non-Nigerians, especially those who have come to invest, and how they've been able to get a conducive time and atmosphere to go about their business investments here. Why is it that we don't get to see the same for Nigerians outside the country? Because when you talk about business investment treaties, say for about just 2 or 3 banks that are doing pretty well outside the shores of Nigeria, how come others are not cashing in on such agreements or treaties?
Number one, I will start by saying that a lot of things we're beginning to really speak out. And that's the reason why I jumped at the opportunity to come here and speak out. The committee has done well. I mentioned the case of Dana. The last leg of the noise on Bakassi was drawn in by the committee, and we discovered a whole lot of things. We've been shouting to have the BASAs reviewed. We were already shouting about the business investment treaties to be looked into. It's also concern also is what you have raised now to say, listen, they come here, they enjoy tax cuts. Do we have a policy in the first place is what we should look at. What should be our policy? In entering into any BIT, for example, you should make sure that human rights are not infringed upon. There's environmental protection, and you should also look at protecting reciprocal business investment. Those are policies that should be considered, but these are not being done. And where the National Assembly cannot on its own go ahead. The Constitution is clear. The Constitution says that it's the executive arm that must initiate the domestication of these. If the Constitution had allowed for the National Assembly too, we would have domesticated all of them. But we've gotten countries, I don't want to start mentioning countries on air, but there are cases where they enjoy tax cuts, they enjoy rebates, they enjoy all of these things. There are clauses in our agreements that says that if anything happens, natural disaster, act of war, and so on and so forth, that these investments would enjoy the same thing as Nigerian businesses. And I'm thinking, in as much as I want those businesses to thrive, what are we talking about here? They have already enjoyed a lot of things. Why this focus? And is the same being done on the other side? The answer is no. At a point in time when I think some Nigerians were to have been deported from South Africa, the Committee on Foreign Affairs, chaired by Nina Okejo, did a wonderful job, spoke up, went into action, and the South African government apologized and instantly corrected a number of things.
I think, well, this is where we have to leave it, but the House and your committee specifically has a whole lot to do with regards to the BIT, Business Investment Treaty. We have seen, you talked about Ghana and the kind of amount, even in the United States, sometimes you need a certain amount for you to come in before you can come in as an investor.
Correct.
There, how come some come into the country, they don't even have a building, everything is on rent, to the extent that people have termed them briefcase investors, multinational corporation, but they don't have a building to their name. All they do is when all else is over, they just go back with the monies out of the country. But your committee has a job of work to do on that and see how we can streamline all these committees, rather treaties and agreements, as well as protocols to make, it be, reciprocal. That's the word.
Quickly speak up right now. In order to address that, a bill was passed requesting that before Nigeria goes to ratify these treaties in the first place, please follow me, before they ratify these treaties in the first place, they should consult with the National Assembly so we can sit down, look at it together and say, listen, this is good. But after ratifying, you already have bound Nigeria. You now bring it back for domestication. You then sit down to look at it to say, what are you domesticating? You have agreed to all these terms and you're saying, here, rubber stamp this.
Well, I think we'll stay on this. We'll hope that we can get some of those legal minds, the professors who are experts in this, to also join us and look at this. Bush-Alebiosu would like to thank you so very much for joining us. He is the Chairman, House Committee on Treaties, Protocols and Agreements, National Assembly. Well, so I said, I'll take some moment now, and we'll be back shortly. Join us again.